and the guy literally looked at me and my mom and said, "Do you want to be pinned to the ground and dragged out of here by the police like that guy was?" Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be the very intense story time from when a WestJet employee threatened to arrest us at the airport. So before we get into the super crazy story time, don't forget to subscribe down below if you're not already subscribed to my channel, and give this video a thumbs up. And let's just get started because I have a feeling that this video is going to be a long one. So some background information that you guys need to know before I get into the whole story time. One is that I am super afraid of flying. I hate flying. I can't stand it. So I was already pretty on edge for this trip. This was like a 4.5 hour flight, and I just don't like flying. So I was really nervous and all that. But I was also excited because I was going to New York City to meet my internet best friend. And I was just really excited to meet her. We'd been planning this trip for, I want to say, at least a year. Since the summer of 2017. This occurred in the summer of 2018. So we'd been planning this trip for a solid year. So we were just super excited. Even though I was pretty anxious, I was excited. So my mom and I were going on this trip together to meet her and her mom. And we have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning because our flight leaves at 6 o'clock in the morning. And because it was an international flight, I was flying from Canada to the USA. You had to be there 2 hours ahead. So we had to be at the airport at around 4 o'clock in the morning. So we woke up at 3. We didn't get a lot of sleep the night before because even though we tried to go to bed a little bit earlier, you're not going to be able to go to bed and get 8 hours of sleep waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That just wasn't going to happen. So we'd probably got about 5 hours of sleep or so. So definitely not a lot. But we were just really excited. So we got to the airport. We went through security. Everything went perfectly fine. And I actually remember as we were pulling up at the airport, my dad dropped us off there. He was like, "It's the first flight of the day, so there's a very small chance that it will be delayed." Yeah, okay, so we get to the airport. Everything's going fine. This is actually when I started vlogging, and I really wish I had continued vlogging, but I was really new to YouTube at the time. I think I'd only had 2 videos on my channel or something. So I ended up stopping vlogging when all of this started, so I'm really angry about that, but that's why I'm telling this story time now anyway. So I actually started vlogging around this time, talking about how excited I was to be on this trip and everything like that. And then we're getting ready to board. It's about 5:40, 5:30ish, and I'm getting ready. I got all my stuff ready. Other people were there waiting. We're all getting ready to get on this plane. And then all of a sudden an announcement comes onto the little speaker, and we're just thinking like, oh, they're calling people to board, all that stuff. And they tell us that our flight is going to be delayed like 30 minutes or something. So of course I was angry because I was like, oh, this is already not working out. Why is the flight delayed? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And basically how our flights were going is we were flying like an hour, and then we had like a 2-hour layover, and then we were flying the rest of the 4 hours to New York. So I knew that we were going to be okay. I was like, okay, we have a 2-hour layover. This 30-minute delay is not going to affect that. We'll still have time to get on our connecting flight, which was at like 9 in the morning or something. But then we're waiting, and then it's eventually time that we should be boarding again, the delayed version. And this whole time I was kind of trying not to freak out. I was like, this is a bad start. This is a bad start. My mom's like, it's fine. Planes get delayed all the time. It's not a big deal. So I calm myself down, and then we go to get on our plane again, and they said this flight is completely canceled because there's something wrong with the plane. They said what was wrong, but I don't remember. Something's wrong with the plane, and we're worried it will catch on fire when it is in the air. And I'm like, all right. So of course everyone's mad because everyone has connections, everyone has places to be. So everyone rushes to the front of the WestJet counter, and everyone's trying to figure out something that they can do. So basically there was another flight on the airline Air Canada, which we don't normally fly because we don't really like that airline, but there's another flight on Air Canada that would get us to our location in time for us to make our connection. So I'm talking to the WestJet people, and I'm saying, well, my mom is, but basically we're talking and we're like, get us on that Air Canada flight that is departing in like 30 minutes so that we can get ourselves to our connecting flight. So WestJet said, no, we don't do that. We only will put you on another WestJet flight. we won't put you on an Air Canada flight. And we're like, okay, then put us on another WestJet flight. Like, oh, we're not having one for another couple of days. And we were like, are you kidding me right now? So if you're not going to provide a backup flight option, then why aren't you putting people on this other flight? And they just kept saying, no, no, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. I'm crying at this point because I'm like, oh my god, what is going to happen now? What is going to happen? So after my mom did a little bit of Google searching, we find out that there is a flight that is departing to New York the next morning, except it's about an 8-hour drive from where we live. And WestJet was not providing any planes to that location. They just weren't doing it. So we're like, okay, can you put us on a flight to that location so that we can catch that flight in the morning at least? We'll lose a whole day of our trip, but can you at least do that? And they said, no, no, we can't do that. We're not doing any planes from here today. So we were kind of annoyed. And what ended up happening was my grandparents were driving somewhere that was about 5 hours away from where we lived. They were driving there that day. And from that location that they were driving to, we could catch another plane to the place that, like, it was literally like a 30-minute flight to the place that was 8 hours away. So we could get on the plane the next morning. So we got in the car with my grandparents, and they were going to drive us to that place so that we could catch that late night. It was like a 9 p.m. flight or something. So at this point it's like 10 or 11 a.m. We've already missed our connection by the time we've got all of this worked out. So they're gonna drive us to the airport so that we can catch the 30-minute flight and then get to New York the next morning. So basically we drive with them in the car. Pretty uneventful at this point. Of course, I'm super upset because I was supposed to be meeting my friend at this point. She was in New York City already. And I was just really upset. So we get to where we need to be. We get on the flight that WestJet eventually did after hours and hours of talking. They eventually put us on this other flight so that we could the next morning go to New York City. So basically then what happened was we flew in, and then we needed a place to stay. Obviously we didn't plan a hotel in this location because we had a hotel in New York booked for that night. So we get off our plane, and then there was a couple of other people that were on that flight as well that were supposed to be on our original morning flight. And apparently there was a couple of other planes canceled that day due to weather, but ours was canceled due to a mechanical issue. So they said, okay, you can go to the customer service area. Will get you set up with a hotel. There was a hotel that was in that airport, which was probably the most convenient place for us to stay. At this point, it is about 11 p.m. So we're really tired. We've been up since 3 o'clock in the morning. So we've been up for a really long time. We're exhausted. And we're like, hey, we just need to get on this. This has been a little bump in the road, but we just need to get to the hotel. So we're going to wait in this line. But then the line was literally a million people long, and they had like 2 people working, 1 or 2 people working. I'll insert pictures of the line, and this was literally how long the line was. And at this point, like I said, we had been running on 5 hours of sleep for however many hours. We're exhausted. I'm like, no, I'm not waiting in this line. This is ridiculous. And by the time we get there, all of the hotel rooms that are in the hotel that's attached to the airport are going to be gone. So my mom just says, you know what, no, I am just booking a room at that hotel. I'll pay for it myself now, but WestJet is refunding us the money. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not waiting in this lineup. So while we're just kind of standing in the line while she's going on the website trying to book a room at that hotel, and all of a sudden this guy starts going nuts. So I don't know how much video I have of this. I know that my mom was kind of trying to film something around this part. This is where the story gets crazy. But I will put the video that we do have up on the screen right now. But basically what happened, this guy literally starts flipping out like, and I was just confused. I did not know what was going on. He's like talking to some security guards, talking to some people who work for WestJet, and he is just losing it. Like, he is screaming and screaming. And what we ended up finding out later was that one of his relatives had passed away in Toronto, and he was trying to get to Toronto, but WestJet canceled his flight due to the mechanical issues. He was supposed to be on our flight. So then he couldn't get there to say goodbye to his relative who ended up passing away. So he was understandably super upset. He was freaking out, and I just felt so bad. It like literally hurt me to watch that. I'm exhausted and no one wants to watch that, so I'm like crying again at this point. And And this guy, he's like throwing his backpack at the WestJet employees. He wasn't like throwing it right at them. He was kind of more throwing it at the ground in their direction. So he wasn't being like physically like violent with them. He wasn't like hitting them or like throwing things like right at them and hitting them with objects. But he was freaking out and he was screaming and crying and whatever. And the WestJet people were just being so rude. Like, I understand like what he was doing wasn't necessarily right, but they were just being so not understanding. They were just like kind of standing there like watching him, like not really even saying anything to like try to make him feel better, nothing. So his friend, he was traveling with a friend, ended up getting him calmed down. Like his friend like sat with him on the ground and got him calmed down. The WestJet people had left at this point. I don't even know where they went and all this, but anyway, so his friend had got him calmed down, and he was calm now and not making a scene anymore. So I was like, hey, thank goodness that is over. Like, oh, thank goodness. And then the WestJet guy that he was originally talking to came back and brought the airport police with him, and they arrested this guy, which I did not understand what the point of that was, because he was already calm at this point and he hadn't done anything that was like, he hadn't like assaulted them or anything. He was just kind of yelling at them. So they arrested him, and of course he starts freaking out again because he's being arrested, and they carry him away. I'm just crying because like this is just so hard to watch, so hard to listen to him talk and like tell his story, and it was just so heartbreaking. So at this point my mom goes to talk to the same WestJet guy that called the police on the guy who was freaking out, and was like, okay, this is ridiculous. We're not waiting in this lineup. I booked a room at this hotel and you guys are gonna give us a complete refund. Like, no, like, look at what you are doing to people. Like, look what you're doing to my daughter. Like, she's crying. I'm sitting here crying at this point still, and like my daughter is crying. Like, we missed an entire day of our vacation. This is just inhumane how you are treating people. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's your fault that the flights were canceled, and you guys didn't make any, I mean, it's not their fault that the flights was canceled, but it was their fault that they didn't make any alternate arrangements for people to get to where they needed to be. So that was just really heartbreaking. And then the guy just had literally no sympathy. My mom was like, look at what you were doing to these people. Like, look what happened to that guy. Look what you're doing to my daughter. Look, everyone else in this line is so upset right now having just watched what they just watched. And the guy literally looked at me and my mom and said, do you want to be pinned to the ground and dragged out of here by the police like that guy was? And at this point I'm just like, Mom, we need to go. We need to go. Like, he literally just threatened to pin us to the ground and arrest us for literally no reason. Like, this is literally how the story went. We were just talking to him. That's literally it. Threatened to pin us to the ground and drag us out of the airport, which was just ridiculous. So at this point I'm calling my dad. I'm crying. I'm like, I do not know what's going on. Like, this guy just threatened to arrest Mom and me. I don't even know where I fit into this, but we go to the hotel that's in the airport. We check in, everything. I kind of calm down. My dad's trying to be on the phone with WestJet, trying to explain the situation, seeing if maybe there was cameras that picked up on this conversation, whatever. So we get to the hotel. It's 1 o'clock in the morning at this point by the time we get checked in, and I had to eat something. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Our flight is leaving at 9 to go to New York. So we had to wake up at like 6:30 because we had to be down at the airport by 7. I was so worn out at this point. Literally, it had been so rough, such a long day the day before. I didn't even want to fly at this point because, like I said before at the beginning, I was already super anxious about planes, and I was just not okay. And we get down onto the plane, and you'd think the story's over at this point, but it's not. So we get down, we board our flight, the flight is on time, and I'm like, okay, thank God, it's a new day, try to be positive, get to meet Kayla today, it's all going well. So we get everyone board on the plane, no delays, everything is fine. So I'm feeling a lot better, and then right when we're supposed to be boarding, they're like, oh yeah guys, there's a broken cargo door, the cargo door is fixed now, but we have to wait for the paperwork to be done in order to take off. And I'm like, oh my God, seriously, we are delayed yet again. So I was really upset about this, but I was like, hey, they're just doing the paperwork, how long could that take? Wrong. So the paperwork took over an hour, so we were over an hour delayed again at this point. And we go on our plane, whatever. I'm like just trying to be positive now. The flight went not too bad. and then it was getting really close to the landing time, and I looked kind of rough. I didn't get really ready in the morning, but I knew me and my friend were going to be taking a lot of photos and videos when we met, so I wanted to look somewhat presentable. So I had my makeup on the plane, and I was going to just do my makeup and hair in the last like 30 to 40 minutes of the plane ride. So I asked the flight attendant, I'm like, "Okay, when are we gonna be landing?" She said 40 minutes, and I'm like, "Okay, cue my time to start doing my makeup," all that fun stuff. So I get completely ready. It was actually supposed to be raining a little bit in New York when we were landing, but I didn't think too much of it. So basically, when you were flying to New York from where I was coming from, you flew over like Quebec, Montreal, Toronto, that area, and then that is really, really close to New York City. So I've done my makeup at this point. I'm like, "Kate, we're gonna be landing in like 20 minutes. I'm super, super excited." So right when I'm kind of preparing for the going down, the flight attendant, or the pilot, comes on the speaker and is like, "Yeah, so because it's raining in New York, we might have to circle the airport for 2 hours, and we do not have enough gas for that. We'd probably run out of gas. So we're probably gonna need to land in Montreal to fuel up." And at this point, I'm like, I don't know what kind of pilot says like we might run out of gas. That's just not something you say if you're a pilot, in my opinion. So I'm like trying not to freak out again about the fact that we're gonna have to make another delayed stop, and who knows how long that's gonna take. And then after that, circle the airport for 2 more hours. It just seemed so ridiculous to me. So what ended up happening with that is we never ended up having to circle the airport for that long. A lot of the other planes ended up being able to land before us, so we weren't gonna have to circle the airport. So good news was we didn't have to land in Montreal to get more gas. We ended up just being able to land the plane like normal. And then I ended up getting to New York a day late, so I did lose a big chunk of time with my friend, which really, really sucked because we already did have limited time together. And on top of that, I was just so exhausted from everything that had happened that I probably wasn't as fun as I could have been if none of that had even happened. Alright, so you guys might be wondering about the resolution of this whole thing. So basically what the guy did say to us, I realized I watched the video that I had. It was just basically a video of me crying. It didn't have the part of him saying that he was going to drag us out. But that actually was caught on airport security camera. The person that my dad talked to on the phone did say that that was a fireable thing. Him saying what he said. I don't know if the guy actually did get fired or not. Like, they didn't really update us on that. But the person who we did talk to on the phone was really, really angry about what he said and said that that was just not okay. So I don't even know what ended up happening to that guy. But basically what WestJet did was they gave us 1,000 WestJet dollars to make up for everything that had happened. So basically WestJet dollars is just, you can use them to buy flights. So basically we got $1,000 to spend on plane rides, which in my opinion, it was kind of a bold assumption of them to assume we wanted to fly on their airline again anyway, after what had just happened. But yeah, they did just give us 1,000 WestJet dollars, and yeah, that was kind of a nice thing to do, but I was still really, really angry. You can't really make up that time with a friend or a person that, like, that day that we did lose together in New York City, and it was just really, really devastating for that to happen. But yeah, so that is the story time of when we had a really, really hard time getting to New York and almost got arrested. I really, really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see me do more story times, definitely leave a comment about that down below, and definitely comment what you thought of this story. I know it was a little bit of a wild one. I tried to do my best to explain everything, but I really hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!